She's an award-winning YouTuber and best-selling author obsessed with helping you go after the life you want.
I like it.
Join her as she seeks out the stories and strategies
Give me every little detail.
of extraordinary people who found success.
I'm going to get emotional. Oh my God.
Welcome to Detail Therapy with Amy Landino.
Hey there, welcome to Detail Therapy. I am so excited. This is a very special episode of the show today, and that is because I'm going to be sharing another podcast that I am on. So if you are interested in getting business savvy and marketing like a boss, stay tuned. For those of you who are new to this show, though, my name is Amy Landino, and I will be your host. I'm a YouTube creator, professional speaker, best-selling author, and entrepreneur. I'm here to help you go after the life you want. You can find out more details about me at youtube.com/AMYTV. So the reason I wanted to do this today is a couple weeks back, or about a month or more back, I launched a new podcast. I know I'm going all in on this audio craze, right? It's a little bit much. Amy, I thought you were the video girl. Yes, but I love all types of different learning. I love sharing value in a lot of different ways. And one of the things I've always wanted to do was to have just one little area of the world that was very easy and passive for people to listen to if they wanted to improve their business. And one particular colleague of mine, his name is Brian Fanzo, he and I, whenever we would get together, maybe at a conference or just run into each other hanging out because we just got to be good friends, he actually introduced me to my husband, Vincenzo. You know, whenever we would talk about business, people would listen to us talk and they would be like, oh my gosh, you guys just fire at all cylinders. You're always on the same page, but you have different ideas. And when you're in the business world and you're trying to surround yourself with people who have gained experience and have insight and are passionate about what they do, we've just found that we are a kind of a good pair at just sharing ideas. If somebody were to come to us, it's like, it's so weird. You know, you just kind of find somebody who's sort of like the yin to your yang when it comes from a certain area of your life. And when it comes to marketing, influencership, branding, and being a business, Brian and I really see eye to eye. So we always felt like, you know what, we should have a show together. And it took a long time for it to come to fruition, but it did finally. It took some time because we actually recorded quite a few episodes before I ended up taking the month of November off last year, which a lot of you will remember for personal reasons. But we did finally launch this year, and it was just so exciting when we did because we are getting the feedback that we've gotten in person a lot from people who are tuning into the podcast. And I thought it just felt weird that I had these two siloed little podcast worlds and you guys not really know about it. So I want to share at least one episode with you today. And the reason I chose this one, we're a few episodes in, a little bit behind Detail Therapy, but still getting going here. This episode in particular, I thought was interesting because even if you aren't necessarily launching a business or you don't have a business idea or you don't really know what your long-term career situation looks like at this point, this may still be a very valuable podcast episode for you because you are going to increase your business savvy and your marketing savvy, but at the same time, it's important for everyone. Everyone has a personal brand on some level. It's just a matter of who is in your audience. Is it just a couple of friends and family and the people you work with? Or is there a larger audience than that? Could there be a larger audience than that? In all of this, you need to build social equity. So that's what we talked about in this episode. I thought it was the most appropriate for you to hear what is social equity, why is it valuable, and how can you get started in building it right now, especially if you are in the very, very, very early stages of potentially following your passion. There was just no better way to bring Brian on this show than for us to just let you hear an episode of us at our best talking about business savvy instead of me interviewing him. I think he will come on at some point and I'm going to chat with him. Actually, I'm going to see him in San Diego in a couple of weeks. And so I'm going to talk to him about that. But I just thought this was the best possible intro. If you are not familiar with Brian yet, if you're not familiar with a lot of my business mindset stuff yet, I think this one's going to be pretty interesting for you. So if you're ready to start laying that groundwork, this is going to be a good one. If not, no big deal. We'll see you next week. But I just really wanted to share this with you today. And so since we're going to jump right into it with Brian, I'm not going to waste any more time. Always keep in mind, we will still have show notes for this episode, even though it's kind of, in another place as well. It doesn't matter. It's all going to be at detailspodcast.com. So anything you want to know, make sure you pop over there. You can learn more about Brian. You can learn more about the podcast and everything that we're doing over there. So I'm not going to waste any time. I want you to tune in to this episode of Just Try This with myself and Brian Fanzo, all about building social equity.
What's up, Miss Landino?
Oh, back again.
Back again on the couch.
Back again on the couch. This is the only way to podcast.
This is so much. I've never done podcasting from the couch.
I know. It's like it's so much more like you're always standing up.
I am.
Like you're always like going, like hands in the air. Like it's a whole thing with you.
I know. I feel like I wear out the carpet underneath my desk for my other podcast. But this is fun. This is cool. So we're going to talk a little bit. I called it currency, but we're going to call it social equity.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit
That's
about.
probably more accurate.
Yeah, and I think it's something that you and I. We do a lot of it unconsciously or without being completely strategic of it.
Unconsciously and subconsciously.
Both of them, right? See, there you go. Unconsciously would be really interesting. Gosh,
Passive social equity.
This is a great. Maybe I shouldn't be doing podcasting from the couch. Passive social equity. That's it.
Also, let's shout out another tangent. Like it's different when you're podcasting with someone, getting used to that, like co-hosting, not interviewing. Because interviewing, there's always like a defer to. You don't usually correct people unless you're just rude. But it just depends. But you usually are podcasting and nobody's correcting you if you say something. You just on a roll.
Yep.
So I'm not trying to make you stumble, but it was just kind of funny. I was thinking about myself unconsciously coming up.
So for all those that like to do unconscious social media, you guys are in for a treat.
Isn't that the same thing as like passive?
I guess. Yeah, because you're sleeping.
If I'm unconscious.
So maybe it's instead of it's smart unconscious income. We're gonna go Pat Flynn. Be careful.
Pat. Shout out. I love that.
I love it. That's kind of like the interesting
shout out to
piece.
Pat, not a sponsor.
Yeah, not a sponsor. But yeah, I think one of the things.
What do you think social equity means? Like, how can you define that to somebody if they were to ask you in simple terms? Why does this matter?
I think when you're making an ask in today's world, you have to do it from a place of you giving first, right? There's lots of people. I mean, we get asked to do stuff on an every minute, every day basis. Everything from give us a quote for a blog post to be a guest on our show, to show up at this event for us for free, or we'll quote unquote pay you and then really not pay you. But we get lots of asks. And I think with so many asks in today's digital world, the question becomes, how do you prioritize them? And I think for us, or I speak for myself. For me, I'm very big. First of all, I have a problem saying yes. So ultimately,
You have a problem saying yes?
I always say yes.
Okay.
I say too
You have
much
a problem
yeses.
saying no.
It's a problem saying no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I say too many yeses. So this year in 2018, I've made it one of my goals because 2017 I started saying lots of maybes, and I figured out maybes are way worse than a yes or no.
Oh my God, it can mean anything.
Yes, and it prolongs things forever. Right. And like then
But there's also a very special way of phrasing maybe.
Yeah.
So you can still have the no. It's let me check and get back to you. Like once you get into a different phrase, I think then maybe it can get better.
Right.
But yeah, I've fallen into the maybe trap many times because I hate saying no to people, especially when they are just excited enough to ask you straight up. Like, oh my God, I want to do this thing. Can you do it? Right?
Yep.
Yeah. Let me check. Let me look at my workload, my calendar, my life, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, and one of the things I've been saying now is I'm saying no, not at the moment. I'm busy. 6 months from now, check back in with me, and let's revisit it then. Before I was saying maybe let me get back to you, and then it was like the onus was on me.
Totally.
So now
let
I'm
me
getting
get back
better.
to you. I fall in that trap a lot, or I throw my assistant in that trap. I'm like, oh, Meg will get back to you if that's ever like, and that's not cool for her either. But still, like, it definitely let's reassess in X amount of time. I am finding that I even say that a little bit too much too. So you have to be really careful and decide where does this fit.
So even just this discussion right now, right? We have to be strategic. We have to be understanding. But I think when someone's making an ask after they've given something to us, either commenting and engaging, sharing our content, helping us out, oftentimes without us asking for it, right? I find it for me, I'll use Instagram as a great example. Like those that are always commenting and adding value, not asking me. When they're asking me to be on, hey, I want you to be a guest on my first podcast. podcast. First podcast of someone new that's starting out.
Yeah.
That but if someone that's giving a lot, and so that social equity to me is saying, and I do this very strategically. I will plan out 6-12 months from now, and I'll say I want to ask this person something in 12 months. I'm going to start giving them a ton of value today and every day. And I have like a little phrase on that. I say that you have to show you care about someone else before you want them to care about whatever you're going to ask about, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's that social equity. I think it bleeds a little bit into jab, 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 right hook. I mean, I think that's what that essence is, because we struggle saying no to people. It's a lot easier to say no when it's a cold ask, and we both get those emails all the time where someone's just like, this person I work with and they want to be on your podcast. I'm like, you've never followed me. I don't even know who you are.
This is a canned, way too long email that I didn't have time to read.
I skimmed through it, and I just knew that you were asking. I don't know who you are, and I'm going to say no.
All I know.
Yep, that's exactly.
Is that you were asking me for something.
And so one of the things that like jumped out at me for this is that, on your YouTube channel, I think one of the things that I think you do really, really well is that you will not jeopardize the audience, the flow, what your strategy is on your YouTube channel. You're very protective of that because you've built that trust with your audience, and you know that YouTube will penalize you, right? Like there's a combo of that.
Absolutely. I mean, like that comes from trying things genuinely,
right?
Because we're talking about my current full-time, let's say, YouTube channel is 7 years old,
right?
So in that time, only in the last year have I been, that's not true. I guess like it depends on rigidity. We can like define in different ways. But let me put it this way. Up until the beginning of 2018, I was willing to try pretty much anything if it meant I learned something and it was worth teaching to my community. That was the bar. The only other bar was I'm going to do this consistently.
Right.
But I wasn't like, I can't have this person on. I can't talk about this thing. In 2018, it is very different, not because I'm stricter, but because I tried something and I tried something and I tried something for 7 years.
Right.
And then now I have found something that's not only my sweet spot, but it takes off on YouTube in a very different way. So by leaning into it, I have to be even more niche with what I do. So certain things, if someone were to send me an email today, it could be Oprah. Let's say let's set the bar super high.
Right.
Now, this is probably a terrible example because in no scenario ever is using her name and her face going to be a bad thing.
Right.
But let's just say the parameters of my channel right now are my audience wants to hear from me. They want to know my thoughts on something, and they want to see my face in the thumbnail when I publish a video. So if Oprah's team were to call me, this would be hysterical. I would be like, okay, great. I'm going to have Oprah on, but I'm going to bury the lead. I'm going to have my face in the thumbnail. I'm going to come up with my own title, and it's not going to leverage her name. It's just going to be a topic I know my audience would want to see. And then in my video, I would say, okay, here's some things that I know about this. And also, let me ask my friend Oprah what she thinks. And I would then clip in something with her because I know that's the model that works right now. If anyone was to email me and just say, we want you to sit down on a couch with anyone, even Oprah, we want you to sit down with her and we want you to interview her about her next book, which is actually a cookbook. And it's about healthy pastas or something. I would be like, ugh, that doesn't work. And dang it, I really want to meet Oprah. So that sucks. That does not work.
Right.
So I think, once you find what works and you find that formula, I nerd out so hard on that formula, I don't let go of it until it's no longer working. And there will be a point where it's no longer working. But until then, I am going to wear it out. I'm going to do it so that my audience not only trusts that I'll show up on the days I say I'm going to show up, but they're going to get the experience that they expected from me. I know that's a really weird way of explaining how committed I am in sort of like that promise I'm making, but it's honestly true. Like everything I just said, there are people who have amazing names and amazing advice that I have had on the channel, but it's still really difficult for me to bring outside sources onto my channel. So it's just sort of like, how does it work? What's the format that works? What's going to do right by the audience so that they're not like, Amy's channel is changing. I don't get it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So yeah, and so I think that brings us like full circle into the idea. And one of my favorite videos you've ever done was the music video to Gary Vaynerchuk's book. The very first.
This is when I was really trying things.
But I think this is something that's interesting because we just explained, and you broke that down really nicely on how much you think about that and how much that value to you. But you went out of your way and you spent a lot of time producing this, a music video, and we'll make sure that there's a link in the show notes because it's a great video. But you did a video about Gary's book, and I believe it was the first one. So it was for Ask Gary V, right? Or was
the first one I ever did was for Jab 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 Right Hook.
For Jab 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 Right Hook, which is we were quoting that. Talk a little bit about you doing that video. And then and to put this all in a full circle for everyone that's out there, you were also dedicated. There's a whole bunch of in Crush It too, the new Crush It, where you're shouted out there. But talk about what your thought process was, because that's really, you jabbed years ago, and even further than that, because you picked them up at the airport. That story. Like, talk about because there's a lot of people that are listening to this when you're trying to get on someone's radar, like a Gary. He has 3,000 requests a day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, on every channel. It's kind of ridiculous.
And it's even worse when he's launching a book.
Right. Which, because then So talk about, go all the way back. Bring us all the way back, and then we'll kind of show people what the end results
because
were.
I think there's multiple ways to accumulate social equity for the ask.
Yep.
This example is one where I didn't have an ask for him, but I thought this is a meaningful relationship to me, so I want to do this in case it's going to pay off at some other point. Or you could build social equity with somebody you don't even know exists yet. So that's I have a different example for that. But so in this situation, super long story short, like I explain it in full detail in my book, just so I don't want to bore everyone because it'll take me a long time to tell this story. But one of the things that Gary does when he is launching a book is he does an 8-hour live stream. And so at the time it was on a platform called Spreecast, which is no longer around. It was just a really simple way to go live and also bring on somebody else live with you. So for the 8 hours, he's talking to people and asking them questions. Long story short, for the launch of Jab 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 Right Hook, this is 2014, got on and asked him a question, and he thought it was a very good question, and yada, yada, yada. I just said, listen, how many books do I have to buy? Because the whole reason for this stream is he's trying to get you to buy a lot of books.
For sure, and he's really damn good at that.
Buy 8 books. That's why he does an 8-hour stream. He wants everyone to buy 8 copies, give them away for Christmas, whatever. He's Jewish, so that's kind of funny I said that. But anyway, so I get on, I ask a question. I'm like, how many books do I got to buy to pick you up from the airport? At the time, Columbus did not have Uber, so I was like, I have a chance. He needs a ride to his next speaking engagement. Let me be that ride. And long story short, did the ride. When I picked him up from his hotel to go to the airport, I was actually returning him to the airport. He had looked me up. I put my business card out. He's like, I've already seen this. I already know your videos are great. Like, talk to me about what you're doing. How can I help you from a business standpoint? He was just so genuine. He went for a hug. He didn't shake my hand. It was like, you only get me for 10 minutes. Like, I am all yours for 10 minutes. Wow. Like, use it up. And I was really blown away by that. I wasn't special for this launch. I bought those 8 million books I was supposed to buy for a 10-minute drive to the airport. And that was it. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you. He launches book. I get my books in the mail just like everyone else on time, and I read Jab, 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 Right Hook. And if you don't know about this book, it may be slightly out of date at this point because we are talking about social media marketing.
That's true.
But at the time, it was the manual for social media marketing that I wanted on the desks of every single client I had. And I was so inspired. I was so into it. It's like a picture book for social media marketing. It was fantastic.
It is amazing.
Fantastic. And I was thinking, everyone needs this. And I was so motivated by it. And it was the holidays. And I was driving home from the grocery store. And my favorite holiday song came on, which is All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey, just like everyone else. And so I'm singing this song, but I started singing different words, which I like to do. I like to make up my own words to songs. Usually it's about my dog. This time it was about Jab, 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 Right Hook. And I went home and I literally finished this whole song about the different case studies in the book and like who was good on social and who was bad and calling out different brands. And it was a whole thing. And it was like, all I want for Christmas is Jab, 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 Right Hook or whatever.
Right.
So funny that he shared this, by the way. He's Jewish. I think of something new every time I tell this story. So I record the song in my closet with my Yeti microphone, terrible quality, little MacBook Air in GarageBand. And I take that audio track. This is the hardest part when you're making a video that's to music. You take that audio track and now you have to like lip sync it on camera. I lip sync, Takes hours to edit that together. But anyway, I'm not complaining. I get that video done. It's glorified Amy's dancing in her chair. Like, not a lot happened. I threw a bunch of graphics on screen to go with the story. At the time, going live was not what it is today.
Right.
When I launched that video, he just so happened to be doing an interview for Creative Live. And Creative Live had him on for an interview, and I was like, oh, he's super busy today. He's not going to see this video. That's okay. I'll send him an email, and I'll just say, hey, I was super inspired by your book. I reviewed it like I told you I would. I just put a little twist on it. He never got that email, I don't think. But he didn't need to because my audience saw it. They were watching it. And at the time, we are not talking about a lot of people.
Right, yeah, not a huge
we are not
audience at the
talking
time.
about a lot of people at all. I had just launched a channel in 2011. I'm in the B2B space. I've got a small niche community. But I tweeted it first thing in the morning. People started watching it who were subscribed. And they started tweeting Gary directly and saying, Gary, have you seen this? Gary, have you seen this? Gary, have you seen this? And the interesting thing about that, the reason I bring up Creative Live, is I've got a small niche community who trusts me. Trust this book is great because I just did something off the wall to promote it.
Right.
Not sponsored. And also at the same time, Gary is very good with his social equity. So he was on Twitter very, very much focused on Twitter because he had been on a live show that morning, which is not something you can do every 5 minutes at that time, right? So he's on Twitter looking to see what people were saying because Creative Live has a great audience. So he's on Twitter checking for Creative Live feedback.
Nice.
And he's getting a stream of tweets about my music video. This is very serendipitous.
Right.
And he's found it and he saw it and he watched it. And then he retweeted it. I printed the tweet in my book, by the way.
I know, which is really cool.
And it said, "Oh my gosh, you have to watch this." And he was very tickled about it. And I was like, "Oh yay, I got a retweet." To me, one of my favorite things about what I do, and the first video I ever made had to do with surprising someone.
Right.
I live for surprising people, especially if I can create something to surprise them. And so just knowing he watched it was enough. It was me feeling like I did something for someone who inspired me, who I consider a digital mentor. I believe you can have a lot of mentors who are very much in your life. You don't have to talk to them every day.
Yep.
Everyone thinks I have some super cool, tight relationship with Gary. I happen to have his phone number because I picked him up to go to the airport.
Right.
And he never changed his number, which may or may not have been a mistake for him. But we're not like that. We don't know each other like that. But I did something to say thank you. And that's really what that was to me. And I wanted to be on his radar, but I didn't need like something back from that. I didn't realize how much it really resonated with him. Like I didn't give myself enough credit until I saw he also posted it on Facebook. And I don't know what it was about that. It was like, not only did he retweet it, that's a very simple thing to do.
It's a one-button
It's
click.
a dope thing to retweet.
For sure.
But then he took that same link and he posted it on Facebook. Now, we're not talking, at the time, Gary's audience also.
Right, not near as big as it was
Not what
now.
it is today. Huge,
Right.
but not what it is today. So this video might have 15,000 views on it right now. And I've got several in the last year, not the last year, in the last 9-10 months that are over 100,000.
Right.
So this video being at 15 is like nothing to write home about in the grand scale, but it was his 15,000. Like
Yep.
at the time, I didn't have the power of 15,000 views.
Right.
So it was big. And to speed up this story, that was Jab, 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 Right Hook. I actually, so funny, he ended up having to do another webinar with a friend of mine. My friend was like, I'm doing this webinar, but I have to ask you about the music video. So I actually have video of him behind an email wall where he was talking about my video in fairly real time, which was so huge for me to see in person or on camera, just that his reaction. But from there, when he published Ask Gary V a couple of years later, what was that, 2016, he sent me a tweet. He's like, hey, are you going to do another one? And I was like, I guess I am. And so I did another song for Ask Gary V. I then did my own musical book review. It was really just a music video for my own book. And I was like, that's it. Like I did 2 for Gary, 1 for me. They're all about 3 books. Like that's enough. Like I'm not super into it. It was really just for him. So, and then Crushing It was coming out and I connected with his team and I said, I'd really love to be a part of it. And his team was like, you're a perfect contender. They know who I am because Gary has said lovely things about me a few times in the last few years. You don't have to be somebody's best friend for that to just be the case, especially in a book.
For sure.
About reading Crush It and Gary changing your life and it affecting your business. Like, that's true life for me.
For sure.
True life. Crush It was one of the first business books that I read when I was starting to come into this industry.
Yep.
So I was the perfect case study. And I didn't know I was ever going to end up getting printed in one of Gary's books when I did that review. But it was the equity that ended up paying off super long term. And it's not about views. But it definitely was something else.
I mean, that's the beauty of that story, right? It's not even that you were trying to get on his radar to make you go viral.
And it's 2018. So we're talking about this is 2013,
over 4+ years.
2014 to 2018. Like, you're going to wait 4 years? Like, that's the patience thing.
You have to.
You and me, we deal with this so much, who we talk to and their ability to have patience.
Yep.
And not know what the end result's really going to be.
And that's part of it, right? You have to give an element where you know that the value is going to be there for you. And you also have to be good at putting yourself at the right place, right? Like, you reaching out to Gary's team about Crushing It, right? Like, that's an element too. That's a big...
Totally.
But you also have the confidence to do that because you gave a lot prior to, right? And there's also, I think, for people that a lot of times, not only do you have to play the long game, but I want to bring this back to that surprise element. Like, so I don't think of, like, as soon as you said that, I was like, ooh, I don't think I don't follow that same recipe, but I take an element of, I usually, when I make an ask down the road, they're surprised that it took me so long to make the ask because I'm so good at giving so much value that they don't even know what the ask is. And a couple of times I've had people come back to me and say, Brian, Jesus, you've helped me so much. What can I do for you? And that's even the best ask, right? That's not even a right hook. I'm letting them, they right hook me because I'm jabbing so much. But I think when you said surprise, there's an element of, you want to build social equity in a way that really stands out. You provide before they even think it's possible. Because today, I would say we both are on the same chain that all of our friends are writing some amazing books, and a majority of our friends send us a free copy of the book. We all do kind of a post about it. It's kind of just the way that we works right now. It works for a lot of our friends because you're able to generate a lot of. I mean, I did Jay Bear's book. Shout out to Jay, the Talk Triggers book, and I think easily with my link. Just a link that I was following, I had like 81 people that were clicking to buy his book from one simple tweet that he sent it out. But there's an element of like it's not that it's expected because we have that relationship, but the idea that you're surprising someone. Right? Like that video, when Gary's sharing that, like, oh my God, that's wow. Yeah. That is a different feeling, and that builds so much equity, right? And like the fact that Gary's pretty good at doing his research ahead of time, but I think for everyone else, even if that person you're trying to get on their radar isn't as methodical as Gary, isn't as great of a listener as Gary. I mean, people will knock his hustle sometimes, and I'm like, you have no idea how good. I know how good he is at reply. I mean, he replied to a tweet today to one of the people to your tweet from someone. I won't even say a hater, but someone challenging him, and he sent him a Twitter video reply.
Yeah, and I want to speak to that because I think that has to do with a little bit of my social equity, right? Because I was telling you, this has happened before where I will tweet something about Gary, and Gary is if you don't know Gary, he is. He is a very specific personality type.
He does.
So you're either game or you're not, or you hate him because you're jealous. It doesn't matter what your reason is. You have your own. But so a lovely young lady just replied back and said, "Oh, I thought that was such a cool episode too, but I just wish Gary wasn't yelling so much while Scooter was talking and all this kind of thing." And I was like, "Oh my God, I thought that was the funniest part because it's his show."
Right.
And he was kind of saying like, "Oh my God, this is so big," and he was blowing it up to even bigger. And it wasn't like this little CBS unveiling extreme makeover thing. It was Gary's show, so he did it his way. I said the positive thing back. She's saying the negative thing back. And Gary's instinct, I just want to tell Gary, you don't have to worry about every single hater, bro.
Right.
Like, he's not mad about them. He just wants to talk to them so bad and convert them. And I have respect for that.
I do too.
Because every time I start a conversation about him, every time, and someone replies back with a negative and I reply again saying like, "Oh my gosh, no, I disagree," he will Twitter video that person. He doesn't speak to me because I'm on his team already, which I would argue is like not my favorite move. But at the same time, I'm like, I love how much he cares, and yet he doesn't care. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But that speaks to my social equity because that girl would not have gotten replied to if there wasn't someone he was already following in that chain.
For sure.
In most situations. I know that he does reply to a lot of people that are not following him or are, and it's not a follow back situation. But there's things about the algorithm that make that ping his phone in a different way. And
sure.
it has to do with him knowing who I am.
Which is without question.
It's very interesting.
It is. But I
was
also
a
think,
tangent on
I know,
social
I like that because I think that in today's day, it's so easy to DM somebody. It's so easy to send a LinkedIn email with a stupid link. And I can tell you LinkedIn emails that are, if I just connected with you in the last week and your LinkedIn email is longer than 2 sentences, there's 0% chance I read it. Like, I just do not read, because I know you're pitching me. I know you haven't built up any equity. Like,
Right.
even asking for a LinkedIn request without even having a comment is kind of, like, that's shortcutting the system to begin with. But I also think there's an element now where, if someone's trying to get on your radar, right? And maybe it's because they want you, in the YouTube world, for those that really don't understand it, and we'll probably talk about the whole episode on this, like, the power of collaboration is, and YouTube is stronger there than anywhere else, I believe, on any social channel. By collaborating with other YouTubers, you can really grow your channel, and it's definitely something that is
and that
extremely
landscape
well
has
known.
still changed over time. But yes, it's traditionally been great.
So when you think about it, when you think about people that are asking, what's the, when you look at it and say, like, not even you asking, because the one with Gary is you building the social equity with Gary.
Sure,
Those
directly.
those building social equity with Amy, right? Through part of, and you have a very loyal audience. Your audience has been growing. What are some of the things that people do or have done for you that have got on your radar where you're like, wow, that person has done A, B, and C, or wow, I didn't, because that element of surprise, I'm sure now people see that and try to surprise you with similar things.
And also, I'm trying to make this easy on people all the time, and they don't get the memo.
Listen,
I'm
yes.
I'm like,
so
okay,
true.
the number of times I've said, I hate reading email. I just hate it.
Yep.
To the point now where if an email is just too long, I will forward it to my assistant and ask her for the Cliff's Notes. And so there's that. And then I will drop the hint, if I'm having this in a public forum, this conversation, that a video that is emailed to me is so helpful. Now, not a 10-minute video.
Yes,
But
please.
if you can just simply say, like, here's my face, here's my name. I know you don't like to read email, but I want you to know this. We get some, but not as many as you would think. I wrote a book about video, people. Like,
Right, yeah.
I'm giving you the answer, but we do get some. We get mostly novel emails in my sort of public email address saying just, this is what you've done to change my life. And I do read those, but I can't read them in completion, unfortunately.
Right.
And it bums me out because I know how much has probably had to happen to somebody for them to fully convey what I mean to them.
For sure.
But if they said it in a video, I could at least listen to it and see their face while I'm doing a couple of other things. Reading for me takes a lot longer. So it's just funny, like, I will drop that hint and I will be like, you guys, but we'll get a few of those. Those are the people who surprise me. When you are actually listening to me and do what I say, you've seen my latest keynote.
I have.
The people, now in this keynote, I compare handshakes, terrible handshakes to terrible video, and good handshakes to good video. And so, you have like what am I trying to say? The fish, the dead fish.
The dead fish
You have
handshake.
sort of like the pretentious, sort of like kiss the ring handshake. You have the sweaty palms, like all these crappy ones, right? And then you have like a good, confident handshake. And I talk about this on stage. The number of people who walk up to me after I speak and don't shake my hand is hysterical to me. But the person that's like, I need to shake your hand is one out of my 30-person line.
Wow.
It's stuff like that. Surprise me by showing me you're listening.
Yes.
And I think that's what all I did with Gary. Now, did I surprise and delight him with the content? Yes. And unfortunately then, like, my friends, bunny ears, sorry friends, who had books coming out a year after I did that first review was like, when am I going to get my musical book review? And I was like, but that, see,
No,
there,
it's gone. It's different.
the luster is gone for me now.
Right.
But I still listened to Gary. That was the best part. jab, 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 right hook
Yes.
was all about context of everything you do on social.
Yes.
What did I do? I totally differentiated myself from every single other human being that was reviewing his book by doing a musical book review on YouTube. Totally contextually perfect. Not only was he excited to see someone singing about his book, I was proving his point
Correct.
of the book.
You actually took the lesson from the book and implemented it.
That was what he loved about it. And that's me listening. So I just found my way to surprise and delight by
Without
listening.
question. And I also think, there's an element of that, like surprising and delighting by doing something so far above and beyond, right? Someone is getting 2,000 book reviews people are just posting the review on Amazon. The fact that the one comes in as video on top of that, it's really good. The other piece of this that I think is really important for people to remember, and this is something it's amazing because offline, I think we do it without hesitation, but online we suck at it. If you want to get someone. If you have an ask, if you have the right hook, and you want to have your best probability of getting a yes, you must do that ask on the channel that person prefers, not you. So your point, we both hate email. I don't think it's a millennial thing. I just think it's a thing, or maybe it is a millennial thing.
My email is like a to-do list. So when it goes crazy for other things, it's not a to-do list. It's just like a tracking system.
Right.
So yeah, I don't like I don't like what email is, but I like the purpose it serves.
For sure.
I'm super not a good millennial when it comes to DMs. If you try to ask me to do something on Instagram DM, I redirect you to email.
There you go.
Because I can't forward your DM to my assistant.
Right.
Like I can screenshot and all that, but it's a lot of work. So yeah. So no, yeah, there's a whole conversation behind email, but
and I think, and for me, there's an element here where one of the things that I do, and I use a social CRM system called Nimble, for those that are familiar with that system. And one of the things that I do is I put some people that are, let's just say, high priority targets for me. It sounds like we're playing a video game or something. I will become connected with somebody, and I'll be like, okay, this is someone that can either book me for a speaking gig, someone that when I do have a book that comes out, there's someone that I would send a book to. Then there's someone that I am prioritizing in the scheme. And what I do is I actually write in the description of their name, I put down what social channel they connected with me on and which one they use the most. And the reason I do that is because whenever I'm going to make an ask, I'm going to do it where they prefer. So if you're someone that likes a phone call, my friend Ted Rubin, if you want to make an ask and you send him an email, it will come across like you do not understand him because he appreciates the power of the phone call. I have another friend, I think both of us are good friends with Tim McDonald. And one of the things with Tim McDonald is he is huge on Facebook Messenger. And he always will tell people, like, you want me to do something, send me a Facebook message. And I think it's really important that not only do you have to jab, and you have to give first, but you also, for me, if you're sending me an email, and for me specifically, with an ask, it does not carry near the weight if you engage in my content and you're replying in the DMs. So for me, replying into the DMs, making an ask after you've replied a bunch of times, much stronger chance I get a reply. Actually, the most preferred one is you send me a Twitter video reply or an ask on Twitter video. I don't know if I've ever said no, right? Like when someone says that, and it's because that's my preferred channel, right? And I think for people that are out there right now, we're unfortunately, I think we have to have a whole episode on patience, but there's also an element on, build up that equity, even if you don't have the ask set up yet. For me, there's a lot of people that I know that I've been sharing their content. I've been very methodical on what I'm sharing, very methodical on who they are, how I'm engaging with them. Put this in even the further context. I've canceled or pushed flights out a day later when I found out someone that I wanted to continue to build equity with was speaking the next day. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to stay an extra day, cost a hotel out of my pocket. I'm going to change my flight, going to charge there, because I know sitting front row for that person on stage will matter to them. And I don't know if they're going to have a speaking gig next week or a month, but when someone comes to them and asks them, hey, do you have a speaker to recommend that talks about this? They'll remember the person that sat in the front row and was supporting them. And I think that goes so far today, is if you're supporting without even having that ask, and you do it with authenticity, right? This isn't like, hey, I'm going to go in there, and there are ways that people are shortcutting it, but I think it's a combination of patience, it's a combination of caring, doing. And then, man, when you make that ask or you have something to give, I mean, one of my favorite things is that I sometimes don't even have to ask. People know where I'm at, like, podcast launch. There'll be people that will come and say, Brian, send me the collateral, send me the pictures. I want to promote your podcast. The reason that is because the rest of the year, I've been supporting their content. I've been promoting what they're doing. And I think that's what we have to look at. And if you want to get on people's radars, you want people to say yes to you. And we were talking about this yesterday on the mastermind. If you want to get on someone's radar on Instagram so they reply to a DM, engage with them for the next 6 months on every one of their posts on Instagram. Turn on their
Be consistent,
notifications.
not just in one day, too.
Yes.
Just like,
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, it's just like that effort is so big. I alluded to earlier, like, this was an my specific example, and I think a couple we talked about was if you know who you want to build equity with, but there's also the side of just building your general equity.
For sure.
Because if there's something you desire down the road, or maybe it's tomorrow, whatever, and you would like to position yourself better for that potential, then building social equity as a whole is super important. So you gave a really good example earlier, which is what made me think about this, building social equity for the person you don't know about yet. Because when you said people reach out to us, and they do, and they say, I want you to be my first podcast episode. It's not about not wanting to be the first. I mean, like, I'm happy to help you get past your 7th, which is the average that people freaking end up quitting. We're not that far, so I guess I can't talk crap about that yet. But at the same time, it's not about that. It's about, like, why are you asking me? Like, is this really the right call? I would rather not tell somebody that they're my first interview, first of all. But the reason I bring this up is because of the first interview from another podcast that I just launched, Detail Therapy. And the first episode is an actress who was on the CW's The Originals. She was in the movie Sorority Row, and she found my YouTube channel, and she found my wake up early videos, and she was going through some depression and some, loss of purpose for waking up. And she found my video, and she found value in it, and she was binge watching. And then she tweeted about me to her 250,000 followers on Twitter. And I was like, what in the world is going on? And I saw this engagement, and I saw what happened, and I sent her a DM immediately, and I said, thank you so much. Like, this is really cool to hear that video was powerful for you. Can you tell me more about what's going on, and like, why this means something to you? And at the time, we didn't get super deep on the depression thing. She just said, I'm just so glad to see that there is content like this for women, and that it's not all about makeup and the things that don't really matter. Like, this is what people should be learning about. And so we connected immediately. Immediately. I'm talking about first DM conversation. Nice. I said, I know this is a shot in the dark. I knew that the podcast was coming. I was like, I know this is a shot in the dark, but is there any way you're taking press at the moment? And if you are, next time I'm in LA, can I interview you? And she said, without a doubt, yes. I mean, we're talking first DM conversation. I can show it to you, Brian.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's because of social equity I built with her. I didn't even know I did. So it's not that these things don't work out. And I did sit down with her, and then I was like, by the way, you're going to be the first episode because I just thought this was so good. And she felt great about that, and she loved it. And I think it can work. It doesn't mean, you're going to scare somebody by saying they're the first, but what did you do first?
Yes.
Just because they are going to be the first interview, just because you are offering them some exposure, it doesn't matter how many numbers it is. Sometimes exposure isn't enough for people, especially those who have to decide what to do with their time. So, but think about the social equity thing. You don't have to have a specific person in mind all the time.
Correct.
You can have an overall vision in mind. And so anyway, I wanted to throw that in there. I just wanted to, but let's talk about some of the things that you can start to try if you would like to build some social equity. First, listen and then surprise. I mean, listen to someone, listen to exactly what they're telling you. And then if you actually do something that they're telling you, it will be surprising. It's really amazing if you just listen, and then you can surprise very easily. Give. And you know what? Forget the ask for now. Right. Just give. Like I said, you're building social equity for the long haul. It could be to that same person down the road that you just would love to ask them first time you're having a conversation because you have their attention. Sometimes that urgency is important, but you've got to give a lot. If you do have an ask right now, like Brian was saying, context matters. So if you're going to ask, why are you asking? How are you asking? Where are you asking?
When are you asking?
When are you asking? Yeah, that's a good question. That's a great question. Specifically, if you want to interview someone, do they have a reason to do press right now? Did you notice how I led with that in the other one? And where do they like to connect with people? I like that you pointed that out because it does matter to us a lot if we're being asked. Create content. I think that's a pretty simple one, but just get your ideas out there. That's a big one. But I love what you said about front row support. I think that is that's not just a phrase for speakers. And you just sat in the front row for me recently, and many times we've sat in the front row for each other. But I just remember at what was it? Video Marketing World. Video Marketing World. You were in the front row for me. You helped. You now introduced me. We support each other. But think about how you can be front row support for someone in some other way.
Yep.
Like what matters to them right now, and how can you, quote unquote, front row support them? I think that's such a cool way to think about it. If you really want to get on someone's radar, what matters to them right now, and how can you do something for them? What do you think their homework assignment should be if there's one thing they could walk away with?
So I think for the homework for this one, I think what it comes down to is I think you need to find somebody in your sphere that you want to get on their radar and just let them know that you care about them. Support them in a way. So if it's retweeting a tweet, if it's sharing a blog post, if it's being front row in one of their events, I think that is such a
meaningful connection.
Do it in a way that is celebrating them without ever putting you in the circle, right? I think that is an extreme one, and I look forward to that. And feel free, those that are doing that, the homework here, tag us if it's a tweet. Feel free to tag us, or even screenshot it and send it to us in one of the DMs, because I think this is something that, and I also think celebrating that, right? Like when you celebrate other people caring about others, caring becomes contagious. And in our world right now, I think we could all use some more caring about others without even having the ask. So I look forward to seeing those. I look forward to supporting those people. And I think if you guys look through that list that we just gave to you, the ability, when you have something that, if you're giving unconditionally, the reward will come back to you tenfold. It might take 4 years in some cases, but the reward will be so worth it. And I can tell you, my business and so many things in my life are because I played the long game and was giving early, and now I'm reaping the benefits.
Yeah, totally. At Schmatastic, at iSocialFans. Connect with us, and we will see you on the next one.
Cheers.
I would love to hear what you thought about this episode. If you could pop over to either both of our Instagrams or over on Twitter and just tag us on Instagram, all those details will be in the show notes at detailspodcast.com. And just let us know, hashtag JTTDT, which is just try this, detail therapy. I don't know. I just literally came up with it. I hope that works. Let us know what you thought of this episode, and are you a convert? Are you moving over to subscribe to Just Try This? Are you super into it? Do you have any feedback? Do you want to see more of this on Detail Therapy? Just let us know what you thought. Let me know what you thought. And I can look forward to seeing all of those comments either on my latest Instagram photo or on Twitter. If you would like some more advice straight to your earbuds, then get some simple steps for living your best life every day in my free audio training, The 7 Essential Details for Going After the Life You Want. All you got to do to get this audiogram is subscribe to the podcast. Take a screenshot to prove that you are subscribed and email that screenshot to hello@detailspodcast.com with audiogram, please, in the subject line. My dear friend and assistant Meg will be popping over that audiogram to you ASAP, so you do not miss out. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. If you would like to discover more actionable details about how to go after the you want, pop over to youtube.com/AMYTV or search for Amy Landino in the YouTube app. Remember to subscribe for good vibes, kiss the ones you love, and go after the life that you want. Cheers.